In the third year of being in love with Flora, I discovered that she had truly fallen for a young man. To cut my losses in time, I exposed the matter outright. She had only two choices. Either she chose me, or she chose him. Flora cried for an entire night. In the end, she still couldn't bear to let me go. Later, at the very moment when we were exchanging rings at our wedding, a single phone call completely rewrote our fate. Flora, I'm going to die. I really want to see you one last time. She froze in place like a soulless shell, tears falling like rain. I put away the ring, my voice betraying no emotion at all. You've thought it through, haven't you? In front of all our family and friends. A trace of struggle flashed across her face, but in the end, she still firmed up her choice. Chapter 01. When I learned that Flora had developed genuine feelings for a young man, I locked myself in my room and thought about it for an entire night. I am a very rational person. Although we had only been dating for 3 years, we had known each other for a full 10 years. She had long since permeated my world and become an indispensable part of my life. Therefore, I strongly demanded that she cut off all contact with him, and I even forced that young man out of the city. That way, our relationship could return to how it was at the beginning. But all of that was nothing more than my own wishful thinking. From that day on, fake smiles began to appear on Flora's face. I could feel that she seemed somewhat resistant to spending time alone with me. She was a woman who knew how to enjoy life, yet now she threw herself wholeheartedly into her work. 2 years passed. Flora had become someone who no longer loved romance. Even the various surprises I carefully prepared could no longer stir even the slightest flutter in her heart. Clearly, these were all things she had once asked of me herself. She said it was to keep our relationship feeling fresh. Yet she was the first to lose her passion, as if she were saying, she no longer loved me. I didn't know whether her coldness toward me was mixed with other reasons, but my intuition told me that letting things continue like this was not an option. Something had to change. I went straight to her company to find her. Flora was very unhappy, her emotions written plainly across her face. 2 years ago, she had set a new rule for me, not allowed to go to her company and disturb her work. It was a completely unnecessary rule. In fact, even earlier, she had always been the one to come to my company to cling to me, while I had never once gone to look for her. Ever since the young man left, in the past 2 years, she had never once come to find me on her own initiative. Perhaps she truly wanted to avoid me. Do you have time? Let's talk properly. In these 2 years, the communication between Flora and me had been limited to nothing but daily trivialities. Her eyes were filled with confusion, as if saying, what is there between us to talk about? Flora's expression made a sharp pain stab into my heart. So it turned out that we had already become strangers who knew each other all too well. I tried my best to steady my emotions, looked straight into her eyes, and spoke the thoughts in my heart in the most sincere tone I could muster. Flora, let's get married. Chapter 02. I should have said it 2 years ago. Because of that young man, a rift inevitably formed between us. At the time, my thinking was that since Flora had still chosen me, then I should give her some time. Who would have thought that some time would turn into 2 whole years? Her expression froze instantly, and my heart filled with anxiety. I couldn't imagine what kind of blow I would suffer if Flora rejected me. Fortunately, she only stayed silent for a moment before nodding at me. Then she went right back to her work. Both Flora and I came from distinguished families, and the wedding preparations lasted an entire month. Yet throughout that time, her reactions were lukewarm. She never took part in planning the wedding, always pushing everything onto me under the excuse of being busy with work. Even the wedding dress and diamond ring were chosen by me alone, after which I sent her pictures. She was just like an uninvolved outsider, completely grinding away my last shred of hope. Let's hold the wedding first, then pick an auspicious day to register the marriage. I looked at Flora, who said nothing. 2 years had passed. She hadn't looked me in the eye once, still burying herself in work, even at home. She finally deigned to lift her head and replied faintly, okay. The memories abruptly stopped. I jolted awake, my gaze returning to the wedding scene before me. Simon, I'm sorry, I have to leave. The woman in the wedding dress was shattered, no longer resembling her former self. Have you thought it through? Once you leave, there's no turning back, I asked, forcing myself to suppress the pain. I'll make it up to you in the future, with the rest of my life, Flora said. The officiant had already signaled several times with his eyes, and the relatives and friends below the stage were all wearing puzzled expressions. Suddenly, I laughed. I laughed at my own foolishness and misplaced devotion. Make it up to me with the rest of her life. Did she think she was that valuable? Or did she see this as some kind of transaction? I put away the diamond ring and stepped aside, making way for her. As long as she took even a single step today, I would never give her another chance. Watching Flora's back as she left without the slightest hesitation, the huge weight in my heart finally fell away. Very well, she faced her true feelings, and I was no longer lost. It was time to let go completely. Chapter 03. Flora's escape left me with an enormous mess to clean up. Neither side's relatives nor friends knew what had happened. I no longer bothered to cover things up for her. Since she had pushed me into the abyss for the sake of that young man, she should bear the consequences of being despised by others. Sorry, everyone. The bride has left. The wedding is over. I handed the microphone back to the officiant, and the crowd below instantly erupted. Why was it that she could act without restraint, while I had to be cautious and timid? I didn't want to care about anything anymore. All I wanted was to go home and lie down properly, to wipe away Flora's influence on me over the past 10+ years. That very afternoon, Flora came back. She brought with her the young man, Isaac, wrapped in bandages. He sat in a wheelchair, with Flora pushing him from behind. At that moment, I was busy packing my luggage, just like she used to be, so busy that she couldn't even spare a glance. Simon, what are you trying to do? Flora rushed in front of me in a panic. For the first time in 2 years, she showed me an emotion other than indifference. I remained expressionless and said nothing. It felt as if our roles had been reversed. I had become the her of the past 2 years, and she had become the me of those 700+ days. I know it was wrong to leave you at the wedding, but the situation was urgent. I had no choice, Flora explained anxiously, but it could no longer stir any strong emotional reaction in me. Flora didn't know that I had already given up on her. Starting from the wedding preparations, her perfunctory, careless attitude had quietly changed me, until I became the way I am now. Simon, please don't blame Flora. This is my fault. I was in a car accident and thought I was going to die. I didn't mean to ruin your wedding. Isaac lowered his head, looking utterly aggrieved. Anyone who didn't know better would think I was bullying him, when in fact, I was the one who had suffered the most. Then why aren't you dead yet? I mocked him. The thing I hate most in this world is this kind of pretentious coquette. Isaac was instantly left speechless, and even Flora was startled. No one expected such words to come out of my mouth. Simon, don't you think what you said is going too far? Isaac came straight here right after having his wounds bandaged just to ask for your forgiveness, even if you won't forgive him. Saying something like that is really hurtful. After Flora finished speaking, Isaac immediately looked as if he were on the verge of tears, acting like a complete sissy, without the slightest trace of manly backbone. I let out a cold laugh. No one had ever been able to morally blackmail me. I'm neither related to him nor owe him anything. What does it have to do with me whether he lives or dies? If he can leave the hospital, doesn't that prove it's nothing serious? He apologizes and I'm supposed to forgive him. He should take a look at what he's done, meddling in someone else's marriage. If I weren't so good-tempered, I guarantee he wouldn't even be able to speak here. I hadn't wanted to say anything at first, but they were truly annoying. No sense of remorse at all. People who make mistakes should crawl and beg. You. Flora was so angry she couldn't even get her words out. I continued mercilessly. What exactly is your relationship with him? Is he an orphan or something? Just because he got a minor injury, you were willing to destroy your own wedding to rush to his side. Do you know what people outside are calling me now? A cuckold. My family and the Sue family were already at odds. If this wasn't handled properly, former in-laws could turn into mortal enemies. There was no way Flora Sue didn't know this, so she thought she was being clever by bringing Isaac over to apologize, trying to make me believe her. Little did she know that this was exactly what touched my deepest nerve. Get out of the way. Don't block me while I pack. I roared in fury. Flora trembled all over, biting her lip. Not knowing how to retort, she started changing the subject, begging me not to leave. I paused in my movements. Fine, I can stay, but you have to move out. 2 choices. Decide for yourself. This apartment was originally bought by me. Flora paid for the renovation, which was hardly cheaper than buying the place itself. Neither of us lacked money. We did it this way purely because we wanted to build our own little home together back then. She didn't know how to answer again. I continued packing my things. Flora thought I was still the same as before, that as long as she hadn't made a choice, I would always wait in place. Can you not leave? If you don't choose, that means you're agreeing to my leaving. Why have you become like this? What's so strange about it? This is all thanks to you. Flora's breath faltered, as if she couldn't quite believe it. That was just how she was, pushing all the blame onto others. You ignored me for 2 whole years. Did I ever once say a single word blaming you? I demanded harshly. I wasn't the only one who had changed. She had too, and the first to change had been her. It seems, we really do need to separate for a while. There's too much misunderstanding between us. We can no longer communicate normally. Seeing that she couldn't argue her way out, Flora finally accepted my decision to leave. A sneer appeared on my face. In the end, she was still shifting the responsibility onto me. You told me you'd cut off all ties with him. You lied to me. I pointed at Isaac in the wheelchair. His face turned pale. Panic he couldn't hide flashing across his features. I couldn't understand how Flora could fall for such a coward. Although I didn't delete his contact information, we really haven't had any communication at all these past 2 years. Flora said, say whatever you want. Lying to me comes at a price. Flora stared at me for a long while, then finally let out a long sigh. Since you're angry, there's nothing I can do. Chapter 04. That night, my buddies asked me out for drinks and a heart-to-heart. Simon, are you out of your damn mind? She's already shitting on your head and you're still not dealing with him. My buddy Ian pointed at my head and cursed without restraint. As my best man, he had lost face right along with me. Can't you handle this crap like a man? What is this now? Do you think you're a woman or something? You argue a few words, curse a bit, and that's it. When it's time to throw punches, you throw punches. I told you a long time ago, this kind of woman is never coming back. You should have cut it off completely 2 years ago. Ian looked like he hated iron for not becoming steel. I downed glass after glass, completely speechless in the face of what he said. Hey, what the hell are you doing? Slow down. Do you think anyone still feels sorry for you now? Don't degrade yourself. All right. It wasn't until my head was spinning that I finally realized where my limit was. Ian, I understand everything you're saying, but do you know something? Love really isn't something you can just let go of whenever you want. I only dated Flora for 3 years, but we were tangled up together for more than 10. She blended into every part of my life, eroded my entire world. How could it be that easy to cut her off? I leaned over the bar, pretending to be drunk and uncomfortable, when in truth I just didn't want anyone to see how ugly I looked crying. I arrogantly thought I was giving Flora another chance. What I got in return was her trampling all over our relationship. Ian gently patted my back and shook his head with a sigh. He understood everything, he was just standing up for his brother. So, are you still thinking about giving her another chance? Ian asked. You already said I look like a simp now, do you really think I would? 2 years of putting a warm face against a cold shoulder, no matter how firm the feelings are, they eventually get worn away. Flora was probably acting out of spite back then. When I forced her to drive Isaac away, it should have been from that moment on that my love for her gradually faded. Well, that's great then. Lose her and you'll find someone else. Don't hang yourself on one tree, Ian said cheerfully. His happiness left me utterly speechless, as if I'd completely lost the ability to love. After the drinking session ended, half drunk, I sat alone by the river, letting the wind blow over me. I took out the ring I never got to put on Flora's finger. At this moment, it became the most mocking object of all. I raised the box in my hand, planning to bury this pain forever at the bottom of the river. Hey, handsome, hello. A sudden voice interrupted my movement. I turned around, and a girl dressed plainly but with striking looks came into view. Are you planning to throw something away? The girl asked again. I frowned, a little annoyed that this overly familiar stranger had interrupted a decision I'd just made. If you don't want it anymore, could you give it to me? Things that get thrown away must have fallen out of favor with their owner. But truly letting go shouldn't have only one path. Giving it to someone else is also a very good choice. Her words suddenly cleared my mind. The reason I chose to sink the ring into the river was still because of the resentment in my heart. If I had truly let go, then whether I threw it away or not wouldn't matter at all. Can you give it to me? You were going to throw it into the river anyway. The girl extended her hand toward me. A sense of release rose in my heart. Without any hesitation, I placed the ring into her palm. Wow. It's actually a diamond ring. Judging by the quality, it must be worth quite a lot. And you were really willing to throw it into the river. She looked at me seriously. You're someone with a story. It's nothing. All in the past, I replied. It's something meant to last forever. If it sinks to the bottom of the river, who knows how long it'll take before it ever sees the light of day again. I found it a bit amusing. Where did this sentimental girl come from? Sighing over a lifeless object. She sat down beside me. Seeing that I had something on my mind, she barely spoke, quietly keeping me company until I took the initiative to leave. Maybe she wanted to repay me for giving her the diamond ring. My name is Daisy. Thank you for the gift. The girl extended her hand to me again. Simon. I reached out without any hesitation. I remembered that in the past, except for necessary occasions, I usually wouldn't shake hands with other women, opting for other forms of etiquette instead. There was no special reason, just to avoid making Flora overthink things. Now, there was no need anymore. Chapter 05. I never forgot the words making Flora Sue pay the price. My parents hadn't truly made a move all this time because they were waiting for my attitude. I made my stance clear. Any cooperation involving the Sue family would be suspended, no matter how high the cost. I personally led people to the Sue group and took a hard bite out of them. This matter was their fault to begin with. Merely suspending cooperation would have been letting them off too lightly. Impossible. Don't even think about that plot of land in the north of the city. Flora Sue slammed the table and stood up. Isaac, sitting beside her, was also filled with anger. I hadn't expected him to have returned to work at the Sue company. He used to be Flora's assistant, until I forced her to fire him. Oh, isn't this the pretentious coquette guy? Ian sneered. The male homewrecker who meddled in someone else's marriage. What? Hooked up with a rich woman now? knowing I was here to demand compensation from the Sue family. Ian, who'd been bottling up anger, couldn't help but follow along. "You're talking nonsense. I never intended to interfere with Flora's wedding. I was in critical condition back then and had no choice but to contact her. And I even went to Simon personally to apologize. He's the one making a big deal out of nothing and refusing to let it go. Who's there to blame?" I had to admit, after seeing Flora and me completely fall out, Isaac had grown bolder. The old Isaac had been scared stiff. Back when I forced Flora to send him away, he didn't even dare to let out a fart. "Hey, you shameless bastard. You even dare twist the facts. Looks like you won't learn your lesson unless you get beaten up." Ian cracked his knuckles and moved toward Isaac. Flora immediately stepped between them and shouted at me, "Simon, control your people." This farce between the three of them gave me a splitting headache. I was here to claim compensation. Had I known Ian would be this hot-headed, I wouldn't have brought him along. Flora's parents didn't show up. It wasn't hard to guess. They didn't dare face me and could only push out their daughter. The root cause of everything. That was actually good for me. With the old foxes not present, there was still room to maneuver. But these three stirring things up completely disrupted my plan. After knowing Flora for so many years, I could see through her little schemes at a glance. With a dark expression, I walked toward the three of them. Ian said with a grim face, "No way, man. I'm teaching this bastard a lesson for you and you're stopping me. What? You want to be a simp for the rest of your life?" Unlike Ian, the other two immediately relaxed. There was even a strange smile on Flora's face. She thought she had me figured out, treating me like the old simp, calling me over and pushing me around. "What are you smiling for? Get out of the way." I shoved Flora aside with one hand, then drove a powerful kick straight into Isaac. Ian was stunned. Flora froze. Only Isaac went flying, collapsing on the floor and wailing in pain. I didn't stop there. I rushed forward at full speed and continued beating him mercilessly. "Brother, that was badass." Ian gave me a thumbs up. I spat at Isaac on the ground. "My problems are mine to deal with. I don't need your help." "Simon, stop it right now." Flora snapped out of it and charged toward me, looking like she wanted to tear me apart. I slapped her hard across the face. "Who gave you permission to yell at me?" The slap left her dazed. She clutched her cheek, her eyes filled with disbelief. I added another kick to Isaac on the ground. He screamed loudly, but Flora didn't move anymore. I stared at her coldly. "Now can we finally calm down and talk properly? My patience is limited. If you keep provoking me, you know what the consequences will be." Flora nodded dully, as if her soul had left her body. Chapter 06. I want the land in the north of the city. Hand it over. I wasn't negotiating with Flora. I was giving an order. At this point, who was there to talk about feelings with her anymore? It took Flora a long time before she finally spoke. "That condition is too harsh. I can't accept it." "Then we'll go through the legal process," I said coldly. "Pay my family the sky-high breach penalty, 10 billion. Flora Sue shot to her feet in shock, her gaze trembling as she struggled to suppress something. "Do you really have to be this ruthless?" That sentence seemed to drain all her strength. She collapsed back into her chair, completely deflated. "Haven't you always been the ruthless one?" I said calmly. "Do you remember what I told you last time? Lying to me comes at a price." I had already figured out the Sue family's current situation. Because of this scandal, the price they paid was far greater than what my family suffered. Not only were many collaborations forcibly terminated, their stock price had also plunged. Their liquid funds didn't even reach 10 billion. As the party at fault, the Sue family was in breach of contract. They couldn't afford to pay, so the land could only be used to offset the debt. "Why are you being so cruel to me? Are you trying to drive me to death?" Two streams of tears slid down Flora's face, her eyes filled with grievance. "Good question," I replied flatly. "Why do you think?" Then I let the resentment buried deep inside me pour out. "Because you clearly promised to marry me. Yet on our wedding day you abandoned me to go accompany another man. Because you trampled on my feelings and toyed with me like I was an idiot. Because everyone is calling me a pathetic loser who dares to be angry but not speak up. But none of that really matters anymore." I changed my tone, and the words I spoke shattered what little remained of Flora's fragile heart. "This time, it's my turn to stop loving you." Flora lost her mind. She lunged at me like a madwoman and knocked me to the ground. Fat tears kept dripping onto my face. We locked eyes, yet I stared at her expressionlessly, my heart completely unmoved. "No, this isn't right. It shouldn't be like this." Flora kept repeating the same sentence over and over. I slowly pushed her away. My voice remained as cold and resolute as ever. "I gave you chances. You just didn't cherish them. You have one day to think it over. I'm not negotiating. The land in the north of the city is mine, no matter what." Without waiting for any response from Flora, I left her office. The goal had already been achieved. Any further arguing would be meaningless. "Damn, bro. I just realized today, you're actually this manly." Ian's eyes were practically sparkling. I felt a little disgusted. This was completely out of character for him. Isaac was cowering in a corner nearby. full of guarded fear. Judging by the look of him, Ian probably hadn't gone easy on him while Flora and I were talking alone. "Aren't you going to the hospital?" I mocked. "After taking that many hits, what if you actually die?" On the day of the wedding, Flora had been frightened into abandoning me by that exact same lousy excuse. Isaac's eyes were full of venom, but he didn't dare make a sound, afraid that what just happened would happen again. I let out a heavy sigh. It was someone this despicable who had inserted himself between Flora and me, completely destroying more than 10 years of feelings. Love isn't as indestructible as people imagine. If that's the case, I don't need it anymore. Chapter 07. In the end, Flora Sue gave up that piece of land. There was no other choice, unless she could come up with 10 billion in breach penalties. The Sue family had already been badly wounded. This was nothing short of adding insult to injury. Rumors spread like wildfire within the circle that Isaac had become a kept boy under Flora's patronage. The pettyman finally revealed his true colors, relying on Flora to back him up. He acted recklessly in the Sue company and offended countless people. Because of this, Flora was forced to step down from her position as CEO. The Sue family didn't have only one direct heir. Plenty of people had been waiting for her to make a mistake. My life returned to peace once again. Afraid that I'd stay trapped in my past sorrow and be unable to pull myself out, my parents arranged blind dates for me. I didn't refuse. Just like Ian said, anyone who hangs themselves on one tree is an idiot, especially when I was the one who got cheated on. Still, this blind date shocked me to my core. It was the very girl I'd met by the river that night. I suddenly remembered what my parents had said back then. The other party was the young heiress of the Han Group, a few years younger than me, who had been studying abroad for years and had only recently returned home. "Hi, we meet again." Daisy Han sat across from me, smiling brightly. I was so embarrassed I wanted to crawl into a crack in the ground. "Did you know today's blind date was me?" I asked, rubbing my forehead. "I wasn't sure, our names just happened to be the same. That's why I came to see for myself. I have to say, we really are destined," she said playfully. Daisy was lively, like a child who hadn't quite grown up. I deeply regretted not asking my parents for the blind date's name beforehand. If I'd known it was her, I wouldn't have come even if you killed me. Running into Daisy again was fine, but absolutely not in a situation like this. Not to mention that I'd given her the wedding ring I was planning to throw away. "Hurry up and eat. Once we're done, we each go our separate ways," I urged. "Why? Are you in a hurry?" she asked. Daisy's innocent, clueless expression only strengthened my resolve. I decided to be blunt. "Do you know what today's meal actually means?" She seemed too naive. I was afraid she'd been tricked into coming. "I do. Didn't I already say it? I came because I heard your name. And thank you for the gift. You have great taste. I really like it. And it fits perfectly." Daisy raised her hand, showing the ring on her ring finger. I froze. Why did it have to be that finger? "To be honest, I've become interested in you." Her words made my movement stall. I stared at her in disbelief, curiosity filling my eyes. Her face suddenly flushed. She lowered her head, her voice barely audible. "That night, the way you stood there silently, looking so melancholy, I couldn't pull myself away." "That's it. Isn't that a bit rash?" I said, finding the reason hard to believe. "What's so strange about that?" Daisy lifted her chin stubbornly. "Love is just like that. Falling for someone doesn't need earth-shattering events or unforgettable encounters. Ordinary moments work too. So what if it's sudden? I fell for you at first sight." I was left completely speechless. Are girls these days really this bold? No wonder she'd studied abroad, no playing coy, just a straight shot. "But you know, I've been in a relationship before," I said, pointing at the ring on her finger. "Its existence proved everything." "So what?" she replied calmly. "When you handed it to me, it meant you'd already let go, didn't it?" I could feel your sense of release. My pupils shrank. She was right. It was only when I gave her that ring that I truly let go, completely releasing all my feelings for Flora. Suddenly, I felt that Daisy and I were the same kind of people, equally sentimental. Maybe our thoughts that night had been the same. That was why neither of us spoke, quietly keeping each other company until late into the night. "Don't you think this is fate? You gave me a wedding ring before, and now we're on a blind date. It's like a cycle. We were destined to meet again." Her words were so direct that I didn't know how to respond. She had seen me at my most lost and broken, yet I didn't feel uncomfortable at all. There was something inexplicably warm about her, something that made people want to open up. We ended up eating for more than 3 hours. The deeper we talked, the more I realized how absurdly many interests we shared. "Let's exchange contact info. This time, we finally have a perfectly legitimate reason," Daisy said first. "Okay." I took out my phone without any hesitation. "Let's keep in touch." At that moment, Daisy and I finally became real friends. Chapter 08. Flora wanted to ask me out to talk. I thought there was something wrong with her head. At this point, there was nothing left to talk about. She had destroyed our marriage, and I had made her pay a heavy price. Between her and me, things had long since become irreconcilable. She refused to give up, bombarding me with calls. Once I blocked one number, she'd call again from a new one. Left with no choice, I agreed. But I wasn't without a temper either. I deliberately left her waiting for 2 full hours. Back then, when I was the one putting a warm face against her cold shoulder, she'd stood me up like this countless times. You must have waited a long time. Sorry, work's been busy. I used the same excuse Flora used to give me. Only then did I finally understand her mindset toward me back then. No different from how one treats a stranger. Can you not be like this? Flora wore a pained expression. She clearly heard the distance in my tone. My eyes widened. You treated me like this back then too. Why don't you like it now? Flora's breath faltered. She lowered her head and said nothing. Only when roles are reversed can one truly feel the other person's embarrassment. The corner of my mouth curled slightly. She must be feeling it deeply now. Not saying anything. Then I'm leaving. I didn't come here to watch you stay silent. Flora panicked. Simon, can't we go back to how things were? It's been over a month. We should both be calm enough now to talk things through properly. I looked at her as if she were an idiot. Is there something wrong with my brain? Or are you mentally unwell? Things have blown up to this extent. What makes you think there's still any chance we could get back together? I felt utterly speechless. Flora still thought I was the old simp, so in love with her that even after discovering her cheating, I'd still give her chances. But we've been together for so many years. How could it just end like that? Flora said anxiously. You've got the nerve to say that. I shot back. So you know we had years together. Then tell me, why did those years fall apart the moment and nobody appeared? Why was our relationship, built over so many years, abandoned at the most important moment of our lives, our wedding, because of a single phone call, leaving me behind? Go on, tell me, why did years of feelings end up like this? Every word cut straight to the heart. Flora panicked, tears streaming down her face, able only to repeat, I'm sorry, over and over. It was my fault. Back then, I felt that you forcing me to choose hurt my pride. I shouldn't have sulked and gone cold on you for 2 years. I'm someone who thinks for herself. I ran away from the wedding because I wanted to get back at you for forcing that decision on me. My pride just wouldn't let it go. The one I truly loved was you, not Isaac. That's why, in the beginning, I chose you. Flora finally revealed the truth behind her fleeing the wedding. Her emotions collapsed completely as she rushed forward and hugged me. But it was far too late. Even if what she said was true, so what? Some things simply cannot be done, like running away from a wedding. Someone who can treat marriage as a joke doesn't deserve love. I no longer lingered in her embrace and gently pushed her away. Since you're someone who can think, you should know there's no longer any possibility between us. I said with a sigh. No, we still have a chance. As long as you don't mind, we can go back to how things were. Suddenly, I felt a deep sense of sorrow. What exactly did Flora take me for? How could she even say something like that? I do mind. I mind so much I want to die. Her shameless words ignited a towering rage within me. I knew with absolute clarity that I could no longer have any entanglement with her. I slapped her hard across the face, using it to prove my resolve. This slap is me returning what I'm owed. From now on, you walk your narrow bridge, I walk my broad road. We have nothing to do with each other anymore. I turned around and left without hesitation. Flora, her face full of despair, finally couldn't stand anymore and collapsed to the ground. Letting go of someone doesn't actually take that much time. As long as you figure things out for yourself, that's enough. Since the one who made the mistake wasn't you, why make things hard on yourself? Chapter 09. 2 years passed in the blink of an eye. During that time, my relationship with Daisy grew deeper and deeper. Until today, our engagement ceremony, holding her hand. Everything felt unreal. What had once been a chance encounter had now almost reached a perfect conclusion. Hey, your ex sent a gift, Daisy said as she flipped through the congratulatory presents. I froze for a moment. Memories of everything Flora had done over the past 2 years surfaced in my mind. Ever since the last time I slapped her, Flora seemed to have become a completely different person. She truly threw herself into her work. In just 2 years, she forcefully dragged the Sue family's declining business back onto the right track. Even more surprising was that she fired Isaac and drove him out of the city. As if she had made up her mind, Flora followed the life path we had once planned together. Ignoring gossip and rumors, she began pursuing me again. Occasional phone calls, messages, even staged chance encounters. Flora regretted it, but she realized it far too late. I would never give her another chance. Not until I made my relationship with Daisy public. She didn't cry or make a scene. There was no despair on her face, and her eyes, long since shattered, held no emotion at all. She simply turned around and walked away. What does this mean? Daisy's voice pulled me back to the present. I looked over. A pure white wedding dress came into view. I was instantly stunned. It was the very wedding dress I had chosen back then for our wedding. This is the wedding dress you picked for her, isn't it? Daisy was smart, she guessed everything from my expression. Then the message is obvious. It's provocation. I even thought she'd suddenly grown kind enough to pick a wedding dress for me. Looks like your ex is still hung up on you. Daisy's voice revealed no emotion. I was full of embarrassment and didn't dare respond, afraid that one wrong word would make things worse. Flora and Daisy had crossed paths many times already. There had never been any open conflict between them, so calm it almost felt unsettling. I've decided. I'll wear this on our wedding day, Daisy said with a smile. I stared at her in disbelief, unable to figure out what she was thinking. What? Why that look? Is my decision really that strange? No, I just think the wedding dress was custom made. It might not fit you. I couldn't say what I really meant, so I made up a clumsy excuse. Though their figures were quite similar, it would probably fit. Stop pretending. You think I don't know what you're worried about, Daisy said lightly. Relax. I won't take it to heart. Since it's provocation, of course I have to accept it. I want to prove to Flora that the wedding she failed to complete in that dress, Daisy, can. She looked at me with deep affection. The most important thing is that I want to untie the knot in your heart. Something you personally chose deserves a complete ending, just like this ring. I glanced at the ring on her ring finger. It was still the same one I had once planned to sink into the river. I had wanted to choose a new ring for Daisy, but she refused. She said rings were useless in excess. One was enough. Chapter 10. On the day of the wedding, Flora still came. Even though many people didn't welcome her, she held her head high, paying no attention to anyone's gaze. Flora looked at me with deep affection, as if it were the time when our relationship had been at its best. This time, you must be happy, she said. Of course, I replied. Flora smiled. She smiled, and then tears began to fall. She turned her gaze to Daisy beside me, her eyes filled with longing as she became helplessly lost in memory. Perhaps seeing Daisy in that wedding dress reminded her of who she once was. What I couldn't do, you'll complete it for me, won't you? Flora asked Daisy. Daisy lifted her right hand, interlaced tightly with mine, and answered with the same words I had used. Of course.